and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, this is iRadio News. First, here are the headlines. A South Sudanese researcher who claims to have obtained the original colonial-era map outlining the boundary between South Sudan and Uganda has expressed readiness to assist the Joint Border Committee in resolving the long-standing dispute. The South Sudan Aviation Authority says the expansion of Juba International Airport, which involves relocating the Army's offices situated near the airport, is currently ongoing. And authorities and the local community in Raja have this morning launched the rehabilitation of internal roads within the town to the tune of 54 million South Sudan pounds. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Lasuba Memo. First, the news in detail. A South Sudanese researcher who claims to have obtained the original colonial-era map outlining the boundary between South Sudan and Uganda has expressed readiness to assist the Joint Border Committee in resolving the long-standing dispute. However, Dr. Charles Okeny-Ben insists that a joint meeting be held before he hands over the original map of the colonial boundaries between the two countries. Dr. Okeny, who has conducted extensive research on the border issue, while Nile said that the recurrent border disputes stem from a long-standing misunderstanding regarding the actual boundary line. He spoke to iRadio's Sundown show last evening. He said he recovered the original boundary map during his research, locating it in a UK library. He claims it provides crucial evidence to clarify the disputed area. When asked why he is withholding the map, Dr. Charles explained that the Joint Border Committee had initially stated in 2016 that they intended to conduct their own research to locate the map, but to date, no progress has been made. Dr. Charles is proposing that a meeting be held in the border town of Nimule involving representatives from the Joint Committee. He intends to use the forum to explain the political and historical context of the colonial boundary before releasing the map and publishing his findings in a forthcoming book. Dr. Charles, who is currently based near the border area, says his research began in 2012 while he was pursuing his dissertation at the American University of Abuja in Nigeria. Earlier this week, a high-level delegation from the International Conference on the Great Lakes region and its expanded joint verification mechanism carried out a fact-finding mission this week aimed at de-escalating rising border tension between South Sudan and Uganda. The visit by the 12-member delegation comes weeks following military standoff, civilian displacement and livelihood disruptions in farming communities along the border. Speaking to iRadio on Tuesday, Wayne Jackson Mule, the Commissioner of Kajukeji County, confirmed the delegation's visit, which included stopovers in Moyo and Yumbe in Uganda before crossing into Kajukeji, a flashpoint in the border dispute that has displaced thousands. The long-standing challenge was completed by unclear colonial-era boundaries and a lack of resources. The Commission expressed hope that the regional forum will lead to a binding resolution while urging Uganda and South Sudan to implement whatever decisions are passed by the body. The South Sudan Aviation Authority says expansion of Juba International Airport, which involves relocating the Army's offices situated near the airport, is currently ongoing. David Loputu Paulino, who is a public relation and communication manager of the Aviation Authority, told iRadio's Don't Show program that the authority is leading the expansion process. He explained that ANMIS is being relocated to an area around Yei Road known as UN House, which was designated for their use. According to Loputu, the airport premises were initially provided to ANMIS temporarily due to limited operations and available space at the time. He said this was stipulated under the Status of Forces Agreement, Section 12, while clarifying it pertains to the operation of UN aircraft rather than the overall UN operations. Meanwhile, Bondring Gum, acting manager of air traffic management of the South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority, said that the expansion includes extending the airport to provide additional parking space for international flights. Earlier in March, the National Minister of Information, Michael McQuay, reiterated the government's request for UNMIS to relocate its offices away from the airport. This is iRadio News. Authorities and the local community in Raja in Western Bahr El Ghazal have this morning launched the rehabilitation of internal roads within the town to the tune of 54 million South Sudan pounds. That's according to Addison Arcangelo, who is the county commissioner of Raja County. Addison says the initiative involved both the participation of the county authorities and community political parties, as well as youth, women, and local chiefs. He says the targeted roads are the roads connecting the county headquarters through Raja Bridge to Custom Point, which leads to Sudan, which is 1,250 meters long, plus many other internal roads. He added that the work will include the Raja Bridge, which was constructed in 1931, and roads connecting Raja to Wau and other payams of the county. Meanwhile, the commissioner said the project will be financed 80% by the county government and 20% by the community. As for the allocated budget, 80% of it comes from the county government as the county's contribution to the rehabilitation of internal roads in Raja. This amount is intended for the purchase of cement, concrete, and stones to begin the rehabilitation process. Disability rights advocates have warned that cultural myths linking disability to witchcraft continue to marginalize people with disabilities in South Sudan, with families hiding or neglecting children seen as cursed. They are calling for urgent action to change mindsets and promote equal access to education and services. According to Isa Khamis, Deputy Director of the Association, people with disabilities continue to face discrimination fueled by negative cultural beliefs. He said that in many communities, disabilities is still strongly perceived as a curse or linked to witchcraft, which leads to exclusion and marginalization. Kamis stressed that families must begin by investing in the education of their children with disabilities regardless of their condition. He warned that when parents choose not to support the education of a child with disability, it severely affects their future employment prospects and reinforces harmful stereotypes. Kamis called on the government, humanitarian agencies, and all stakeholders to ensure that their programs and services are inclusive of all citizens, including those with disabilities. Meanwhile, disability rights activist Zakia Musa expressed concern over the categorization of disabilities when it comes to opportunities. She said that such comparisons are unjust and counterproductive. She also criticized the use of negative language toward people with disabilities and urged the public to adopt respectful, inclusive terminology. Musa added that with disabilities are capable of performing effectively if given the right support and opportunities. Before the world of sports, the Minister of Gender, Child and Social Welfare described the rising presence of children living and working on the streets in Juba and other urban centers across South Sudan as a major concern, though no official data currently exists to qualify the scale of the issue. Ms. Nancy Matayo Alisa, Deputy Director of Child Protection at the Ministry, during an ongoing workshop organized by the IGAT in Juba. She said the ministry has a policy on children, but without appropriate parental care, which specifically addresses the needs of street-connected children. To address this, Nancy said the authorities are working with the Intergovernmental Authority on Development IGAT to develop a national action plan under the IGAT Child Policy Framework. According to her, the process began in 2024 with regional consultations in Juba, Nairobi, and Addis Ababa before the policy framework was officially launched in December by South Sudan's Gender Minister Aya Benjamin Morile alongside fellow IGAT ministers. She added that a comprehensive roadmap has been drafted to address the root causes that push children onto the streets. The roadmap, awaiting formal endorsement from the Ministries of Gender, Justice and Interior, proposes vocational training for youth, support for families, and broader social protection initiatives. Ms. Nancy went on to suggest the inclusion of children with disabilities as a core priority. In the meantime, she said the ministry is working with the Save the Children to create a national database to track child protection concerns more effectively, citing the need to implement the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which South Sudan ratified. Nancy has also appealed for increased government budget allocations and renewed effort from development partners to bring the plan into full effect and improve the overall welfare of children across the country. This is our radio news, and here is Darlington Moses with the sports.
Thank you so much, Lasuba. Memo. In the world of sport, Madagascar etched their name into African football history on Tuesday night, clinching the place in their first ever Total Energies African Nation Championship final with a dramatic 1-0 extra time victory over Sudan at the Benjamin Kappa Stadium. Super Pop Toko Ratondrobe was the hero, striking in the 116th minute to send the barrier through a Saturday's title decider in Nairobi, where they will meet the winner of Morocco's clash with defending champion Senegal. Wolves have also rejected a second Newcastle bid for striker Jørgen Strand Larsen, who scored twice in the win over West Ham on Tuesday. The Magpies had returned with a 55 million euros offer after a 50 million euros approach, which was turned down earlier this week. Wolves do not want to sell the Norway international, firstly because of how little their time would be and have to find a replacement with the transfer window closing on Monday, and also because of how valuable Strand Larsen is to their Premier League survival chances. West Ham boss Graham Potter said his team were in pain and called for unity after captain Jared Bowen had to apologize for trying to confront fans. Bowen was held back by stewards after the final whistle of the Hamas 3-2 EFL Cup defeat at Wolves, where two late goals consigned them to a third straight loss. The forward had gone over the travelling fans to salute them, only to react after something seemed to be said from the stands. And finally, Britain's Jacob Fernley overcame nerves in the big moments and a heckler to secure the first US Open main draw win of the career. Fernley, 24 years old, struggled with his services game before coming through 7-5, 6-2, 5-7, 6-4 in a late-night battle with the Spanish veteran Roberto Batista Ogad. And now having some glance on the wall of on international news, the United Nations has said there needs to be justice following Israel's double strike on a Gaza hospital, which killed at least 20 people as an initial Israeli military probe said the strike had targeted a camera positioned by Hamas. Condemnations of the attack, whose victims included 5 journalists and 4 health workers, has been mounting, with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer describing it as completely indefensible. Later on Tuesday, the Israel Defense Forces released its initial inquiry, which identified several gaps for further investigations. Elsewhere, South Korea has passed a bill banning the use of mobile phones and smart devices during class hours in schools, becoming the latest country to restrict phones use among children and teens. The law, which comes into effect from the next school year in March 2026, is the result of a bipartisan effort to curb smartphone addictions, as more researchers point to its harmful effects. Lawmakers, parents, and teachers argue that smartphone use is affecting students' performance in academic years and takes away time they could have spent studying. Finally, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen has summoned a top U.S. diplomat in Copenhagen following a report that American citizens have been conducting covert influence operations in Greenland. Denmark's public broadcaster DR quoted sources as saying the aim was to infiltrate Greenland's society and promote its succession from Denmark to the US, although it was unable to clarify whether the men working on their own. The BBC has approached the US Embassy for comment. Thank you, and back to you, Lasuba Memo.
Thank you indeed, Darlington Moses, with the very latest in the world of sports and the international arena. To conclude, let's have a recap of the headlines. A South Sudanese researcher who claims to have obtained the original colonial era map outlining the boundary between South Sudan and Uganda has expressed readiness to assist the Joint Border Committee in resolving the long-standing dispute. The South Sudan Aviation Authority says the expansion of Juba International Airport, which involves relocating the UNMIS offices situated next to the airport, is currently ongoing. And elsewhere in South Sudan, authorities and the local community in Rajab this morning launched the rehabilitation of internal roads within the town to the tune of 54 million South Sudan pounds. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there is a story or an event you'd like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message at +211 925 287 870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page iRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iRadio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic. At half past the hour, I am Lasuba Memo. Thanks for listening.